Hello and welcome to the show. There we go. Hello and welcome to the show. It is April 21st, 2024. I'm Eric Murphy. This is Skeptic Generation, and we need to talk. Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining me today. Hope everyone's had a really, really good week. I've got some interesting stuff to talk about. Joining me today is my co-host, Moko. For those of you who do not know, this is the kitty cat that V and I adopted last year, or 2 years ago now. And she is hanging out with me, actually. V has been at a conference for the weekend, and the reason I'm sharing this is because I'm going to need to pick them up from the airport this morning. So I'm going to run a slightly more abbreviated episode. I'm going to run for about an hour, hour and a half, so that I still have some time to do the after show. So if you want to join us in the after show to hang out and talk and just ask questions, or just, a little more chill vibe than a call-in show, the link to our Discord is in the description for this video. And I know that our mods are dropping the link as well. So thank you so much, and I hope to see you there. That said, I do already have a couple of callers on the line, but beforehand, I want to talk to y'all about something that came in this week. It was sent to me as a TikTok, and I wanted to share it because I wanted to get your opinion and kind of share some news that I thought was pretty cool. So let me get this up here. For people who want to check the study themselves, I put the link in the description already for this video. So if you want to check it out, tell me where I might have gone wrong here in my understanding of it, or if you want to share it with other people, yeah, definitely check this link. But it was released, this month from the National Bureau of Economic Research. It is a working paper by Devin G. Pope, and it is called Religious Worship Attendance in America, Evidence from Cell Phone Data. Y'all, it's wild. I mean, coming from a religious environment, listening to and reading, the Pew Research Foundation, these different studies of religiosity in the United States, we hear this kind of rise of the nuns, and we see this decline in self-reported religiosity, moving from 50% to the 40% and into the low 40s, and we think, okay. For me, I think, well, that means that almost half of Americans consider themselves religious. Most of those people consider themselves Christian, and coming from a church-going background, there are a lot of things that are implied about that. Well, turns out it's a lot more rare than I thought. And this study really put its money where its mouth is. I've got the abstract right here. Let me share it, and I'm just going to read it directly. It says, first, 73% of people step into a religious place of worship at least once a year. Okay. I'm sure that includes, weddings, funerals, things like that. That's fine. However, only 5% of Americans attend services weekly, far fewer than the 22% who report to do so in surveys. And really, I mean, when we look at studies that have been coming out before, it's self-reported. And oftentimes people will self-report what they think the best version of themselves would be. Oh, I wish that I went to church every week. So if somebody asks me if I do, maybe I'll just say that I did. Well, 22% of people say that they go to church every week, but when cell phone data, when GPS data, when people click that share your information, on their cell phone terms of service, it got tracked. And even though 22% of people say that they go to church every week, it turns out that that's more like 5% of people go to a weekly service. And this accounts for, this isn't just Sundays, this is different religions and different days of worship. A lot of that stuff is accounted for. And so you might be thinking, what's the sample size? The sample size is, I believe, 2 million. 2 million. So it's a pretty decent sample size. I think that's wild. I think that's absolutely wild. And while I want to hop in and talk to callers, maybe between calls, I'd like to kind of go back to this study and see what other information, where people are attending, where else they're going, and what that means for other things in their lives. Because we have a very, very specific idea of what religiosity Americans in general have. And that deeply influences the way politicians address their bases. And this idea that if you can appeal to a religious base, you're getting a massive swath of Americans is why a lot of politicians push towards, getting that done. That's why the Republican Party in particular has really tied itself closely to this religious aspect, because they think that, well, it's a big voting population that they can get in one go. Is it true? And what's the data pointing out? I think that's really, really important. So I don't know. I think it's wild. And I would love for y'all to let me know. So in the meantime, though, I want to take our first caller, because this is a call-in show. And speaking of, even though we do have callers on the line, I want to get good calls if you want to talk about your religious viewpoints, if you've got a conspiracy theory. I do know that a good number of trolls who really enjoy hopping into the comments and stirring shit up. Hey, why don't you put your money where your mouth is and actually call in? I'd love to talk to you. It's been a while. But before I do, let me get that number out here. It is 412-SKEPGEN. That is 412-753-7436. Or if you want a nice, clear call, I do recommend going to tiny.cc/SKEPGEN. That's tiny.cc/SKEPGEN. Either way, it is a toll-free number. This show pays for all of it, so you do not need to worry about picking up that bill. We pick it up so that you can just focus on calling in and talking to us about what you believe and why. So with that said, let's hop into a pretty regular caller who I really do enjoy talking to. So let's talk to Don in Texas. Don, you are live.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you hear me?
I can, and you're sounding good. How's it going?
Oh, absolutely great. Absolutely fine. This is the very first time I have ever called in to a call-in show, like ever.
Oh, so it says in the description, atheopagan, right up front. And I never got a name for the person who calls themselves atheopagan. So I thought it might have been. So I apologize, but thank you for calling in.
Yes. Thank you so much. Is V with you?
V is not. V is actually at a work conference in another state. They are on an airplane right now coming home. And right after the show, I'm going to go pick them up from the airport.
All right. Well, honor to you, Eric, and honor to you, V.
I will pass it along. That's very sweet of you. What did you want to talk about today?
Religious conformity and the Great Escape, and I want to tell you about my story.
Well, I can do an abridged bit. I know that as far as call-in shows are concerned, personal stories don't really get a lot of traction just because people want to see a little more engagement. But if we can engage together with it, then I'd be happy to follow for a bit.
All right, excellent.
All right, hit me. What do you got?
Well, okay. Well, of course, I was raised Southern Baptist Protestant Christian.
All right, in Texas?
Yes.
All right, where about in Texas? Are you comfortable sharing?
Yeah, I'm up in Paris, Texas.
From Paris, okay. All right, Southern Baptist. For the people who don't know, that is that is a fire and brimstone intense religion to come from.
Yeah, it is very staunch conservative, yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
And sometime in my 30s, I married a Muslim woman from Malaysia.
Oh.
Well, when I first married her, I was still Christian, and I told her point blank that I would never bow down to your God.
Okay.
But I began to do some comparison religion study between Christianity and Islam.
Okay.
And then within a year, I became Muslim, and I was Muslim for 13 years.
Oh, wow. That is a big switch. Okay.
Yes. The conformity that I experienced, Islam is so straitjacketing. I mean, it is straitjacketing. I had to box up my entire personality, my biases, my wants, my desires, and I had to stick all of that in storage in order to conform to Islam.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. That's intense.
Yeah. As far as the clothing that you have to wear, you cannot shop at regular grocery stores. You can only shop at halal meats and halal groceries. You cannot eat pork. You cannot drink any alcoholic beverage or even smell alcoholic beverage.
Oh,
Yeah, it was. And the things that you had to say to another Muslim when you converse with another Muslim, Insha'Allah, Alhamdulillah, Assalamu alaikum, and things like that. Yeah, it was extremely straitjacketing, and I lived like that for 13 years, and I did the whole 9 yards. You know, the fasting during Ramadan, the praying at the mosque 5 times a day, and trying to pray 5 times a day while I was at work. And
yeah,
I mean, it was an extreme cultural change.
absolutely.
That I had to go through. Yeah.
You know, I actually just recently did the video for a friend of mine, a genetically modified skeptic. He did a video on Dune and the religiosity in Dune, and Drew has a degree in psychology and kind of went into religious psychology. And for people who haven't seen the video, definitely check it out. It's something that I'm really proud of having made. I had a lot of fun doing it. But the reason I bring it up is because it appears that psychologically, really big asks of your adherents actually has an effect of keeping them in. You know, the more people feel that they need to sacrifice for their religion, it's been found that the more likely they are to stick with it. So what's interesting is, even though you're saying it was straitjacketing, the impact of it appears psychologically to help people double down on staying in it. If you didn't know that, I think that's part of why that kind of thing sticks around. Because if people have to sacrifice for it, then they tend to hold whatever it is they're sacrificing for higher in value.
Yeah, which is it is extremely dangerous. It's dangerous to your psyche. It really is.
Yeah, well, it's manipulative for sure. Yeah, but
yeah, because you have to give up a lot of yourself, and I mean a lot. With Christianity, it's not like that, but Islam, whoa!
Oh,
I mean, you're talking about tying your hands behind your back and your feet, man.
I mean, you say that, but Mormons send young men out to be rejected for, you know, their mission. You know, being sent to other countries and all of that, knocking on doors to get slammed in your face so that they can have this religious persecution kind of developed within them. You know, other communities, you look at Jehovah's Witnesses as well, who will completely cut out family members who leave their faith. That kind of sacrifice is, yeah, it's a big deal. But I want to kind of shore this up. So what happened? Are you still Muslim?
No, I am not. I have not been Muslim for many years now. I am pagan and atheo-pagan now.
Okay.
I've gotten to the point. But what I wanted to tell you is about the Great Escape.
When you say the Great Escape, are you talking about like a movement, or are you talking about your own particular exit?
My own particular exit, which will probably mirror a lot of your audience and a lot of people that are getting out of religion and the fear of hell and death and things like that come with it.
I feel like that is definitely something that people really, really should like tap into. This just isn't exactly the format You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
as a call-in show, what we want to do is we want to engage. And usually when it comes to listening to those stories, we're not able to engage very much. And so it becomes kind of
Uh,
a not terribly active conversation. But
uh,
what I would love to do is I'd love to point you towards the community. Have you checked out our Discord?
no, I don't have Discord now.
No? So Discord, just if you've never used it before, like I want to say 15, 20 years ago, I discovered Discord. It was made for people who really wanted to play video games together. And it's a program that is really, really small, really fast and light, so it can run in the background while you're playing online games with your friends. And since then, it has become kind of a micro community place where people are able to go interact with each other and all of that. Kind of like, do you remember the old school message boards back in the day?
Oh yes, I remember Freetail and all that
Yeah,
stuff. Yes.
it's kind of like that, but really,
Yeah.
really specific to that. And so our audience
Yeah.
has a pretty
I was doing Discord when I was playing
yeah.
Guild Wars
See,
2. I was on Discord.
okay, so you know what you're doing. Link is in the description. Why don't you hop in and engage? Because I feel like that is a conversation that would best be done when multiple people are in it, not just me.
Okay. Well, yeah. Well, I actually have an entire list. I wrote an entire list of things that I wanted to call and talk about over a period of time.
Hey, you know
So
what?
yeah, this is just one of them.
All right. Well, if you want to call back in, what can help you in kind of identifying what to talk about is definitely use that advice. What can we engage with together that can be active and have a back and forth that could be beneficial? That'll definitely help you in being able to stay on the air and all of that stuff.
Okay. Okay.
All right. Hey, Don, I know it's your first call. You have a very, very pleasant demeanor. So I do hope you call back in.
Yes, I hope I can too.
All right, Don. Thank you for watching and take care of yourself. I'll talk to you next time.
Okay. You too. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay. Yeah, I know that it's funny when I worked at the ACA, I feel like every weekend I would speak to somebody who would go, I'm writing a book. Oh, what are you writing your book about? My deconversion. Because when it comes to leaving your faith, for most people, it's a very lonely, very solitary experience. And it can be very harrowing. And it's kind of amazing. So I definitely understand it. But for those who are calling in, let's do something that we can engage with. That's going to get a lot more traction and is a lot more kind of interesting because you got to remember that this is a show that is for the viewers. So I try to keep it going. But Don, I appreciate you. All right, let's talk to Ian in North Carolina. Ian, what do you want to talk about?
Hey, good morning. How you doing?
Good morning. I'm doing well. I'm appropriately caffeinated, and and I didn't have too many big issues technologically before doing the show, so I actually have enough of my brain left to engage. So I'm excited to talk. What did you want to talk about today?
Well, I've been a long time follower. Watched the show back in the day when I actually contacted you a couple times. We talked about A and B theory of time at one point. And when you came back on, I was excited to see you come back on. And then I started listening to some of the things you were saying. And I heard you mentioning, we were discussing, I believe it was when you had one of your co-hosts on as well, kind of talking about your softening of your anti-theism position and more kind of coming into a compatibilist kind of philosophy. And I just kind of wanted to kind of punch some of my information at that and, where my brain is thinking about this subject and,
Yeah.
and kind of see if I can and kind of feel that balance there where you're at and where I'm at.
Absolutely. I think anti-theism is a really interesting conversation that we should be having. So I'm in. But first, I
Okay.
want to make sure that this isn't just a semantic thing. So
Okay.
let me meet you where you're at. How do you define anti-theism? And like, let's go from there.
Okay. Okay. So I consider myself an anti-theist because I feel that the concept of theism is at its core a negative and detrimental mental process, I guess,
Hmm.
or a way of looking at the world, a worldview, a philosophy. In that, by definition, theism sets up not only tribalism and in and out groups, but also takes the power away from us as a species and tries to put it outside of us. It says, okay, well, so we're not responsible for this thing. That somebody else is going to take care of that for us. And I think that because we just have us and this planet, and from all we can see, no one's out there on our side trying to help us be successful. So we've got to do it ourselves. The only way we're going to do that is if we work as a group, as a unit, and try and move forward and let go of these things that I think restrain us from reaching that point.
Okay. So that's almost like a full ideology.
I guess so. Yeah. I mean, yeah. That right. So when someone says they're an atheist, or I say I'm an atheist, well, number one, I don't accept the concept. I'm not accepting that proposition. But I also think that at its core, the proposition in itself is problematic.
Yeah. Okay. And you were saying that I was coming off compatibilistically. How do you define compatibilism?
Well, I didn't know what you were meaning.
Yeah.
It seemed like a phrase that you utilized to describe yourself as you're the way that you're interacting with other individuals. And I have theist friends, and in fact, I have been having some pretty deep discussions with someone, and they've been pushing me into deep dive on Gnostic texts and stuff as well.
Oh.
And and then at the end, it all, to me, no matter which path you take, it all seems like it's just an imposition of the ego upon the universe, and a desire, just a latent desire to say, well, I'm not going to die, and I'm going to get to see everybody again, and I'm important in my own way, and I'm more important than just a sack,
Yeah, what a scathing description of like pantheism and pantheism. That is, ouch. No, I like it. The imposition of the ego upon the universe, I feel, is a really, really kind of nice way of putting that. Well said. So here's my take on it. I do agree that religions themselves take power away from the individual. They are consistently used to well, I mean, you just take a look. The manipulate the abuses of power, the way that it has been used to cover up for SA, and just the religious wars and all of that. I'm right there with you. And personally, I do think that the world would be a better place if we found other things to gather around and not religion. So if that makes me an anti-theist, then yeah, and I've called myself an anti-theist in the past. That said, I have met a lot of, I feel like, you know what it is, Ian? I think that I took more of my religious understanding, more of my indoctrination with me than I realized. And I was speaking from a point of, even though I was an atheist, I still had a lot of Christian indoctrination. And so when I would talk to people who were more liberal, or more, accepting, more tolerant, and called themselves religious, I viewed them as weak. that they were
Okay.
that they were somehow weaker or a more watered down version of their religion. But I think you'd probably agree with me that that's not a fair thing to do to anybody, right? That the people who do
Correct.
that, the people who do that are the fundamentalists. And so that was a part of my indoctrination that I still needed to deal with. Right?
Right. I got you on that.
Yeah. And so what I found was communities of people who had much more lax views. And in fact, in different atheist religious communities and groups of people, right? There's a huge amount of atheist Jews, right? You can still be
Right.
Jewish and atheist, talking to atheo-pagans. In Christianity, what's funny is that Christians consider you not a Christian but a lot of people are still kind of quote unquote Christian atheists when they still celebrate those kinds of holidays because there's a cultural element that you kind of take on as your inheritance as a person that you continue to do because it's something that you've ingrained in part of yourself. And so because of that, when I look at religion, I needed to take a more nuanced view. And it's funny because I had a more nuanced view before I got into before I got into YouTube, before I got into being a personality. There were things that I did in my community, volunteering with local churches when I know that those churches were doing really good things for my community. And when I saw that that was where the soup kitchen was, I rolled up my sleeves and I went because it didn't matter that it was a religious thing; it was a helping other people thing.
Right.
And then when I found myself surrounded by other atheists, it became much more easy for me to paint with a very broad brush and say, I'm anti-theist. But what that did is it caused a lot of people who I could have community with not to even try to reach out. And so I feel like I'm in a place where I'm walking a tightrope. I'm trying to walk this line of holding religion accountable and still creating a place where people who are taking part in things because it gives them, some autonomy, and gives them some happiness. And I'm not talking about belief in general, but I'm talking about the traditions, things like, if you celebrated the high holidays, even after you left, even after you stopped believing, that you may feel like this is a community that would not be accepting towards you. And to be honest, it's not. And so I'm trying to expand this community while still holding people accountable and holding their toes to the fire. And it's kind of a weird place that I'm in. So I don't know if I still fit in there, but I think I still consider, I think I would still be an anti-theist. I'm just not a dick about it. maybe that's it.
Right. Okay. So, well, and, that was what I kind of took your concept of compatibilism to be, because I can have a conversation with someone if their religious or their theistic views or their spiritual concepts aren't what they're if they're not basing their voting on trying to legislate that upon me, then right, I don't really care that you feel that way. If you bring it up to me and discuss it with me, I'm definitely going to push back and I'm going to say, hey, why is this and why is that and what's your reasoning behind this? And that always causes conflict, but it's something I can't let go because of the fact that I feel so strongly that at its core it needs to be analyzed and recognized for what it is.
Yeah.
So that we can move forward. But I get your feeling about, I'm with you on treating people, that are out there just doing good or in a community that they feel comfortable in. That's them. As long as they're, like I said, as long as they're not legislating me, then I don't care.
And there's not this dogmatic atheist, kind of like, we're not going to excommunicate you as an atheist because you did the wrong thing there. Like it is so up to us. And yeah, I'm just, I don't know.
Okay.
But
cool.
Hopefully that kind of clarifies it. And I do want to kind of also bring you up here that, like, I do feel like it is a position of caring, and it is a privileged position to be in, to challenge people on bad ideas. And I think it is important to challenge bad ideas. But we also need to recognize that there's a time and a place for things. right? That lady at work in the office, Susan, Susan who likes taking pictures of fairies and has crystals all over her house and smells like patchouli, and you know, like
Yeah.
she's really really nice, and she usually has great food. And it's worth having a friendship. But when you're at the bar and you're hanging out, you know, you care about this person. You got to, you know, at some point you go, what the fuck's up with the fairy thing? Like, what is informing that? Because what? That's
Right.
what is your reasoning behind that? Because you know, challenging those people on those things, I feel like is we should want to have good reason for believing the things we believe. We should not believe things just
Right.
because
Right.
we
And of
want
course.
to or because it makes us feel good. So I don't know. I guess whether or not am I an anti-theist then? Am I a compatibilist? What do you think?
Well, I guess it sounds like you're an anti-theist who behaves as a compatibilist.
Cheers.
Like, you know, it's like the old saying, you know, pessimist by expectation and optimist by attitude. You know, you got to expect the worst, but try and plan for the best.
I like that.
The same kind of thing, you know.
Yeah. Hold
I
on.
guess, yeah,
Say that one more time. An optimist by attitude and what? A pessimist by.
pessimist by nature, optimist by attitude.
You've got some good lines. I'm gonna I'm gonna try and remember that. So pessimist by nature, optimist by attitude, and you said
Imposition of the ego upon the universe.
that's
Was that
beautiful.
the one you wanted?
You got it exactly. I like that a lot. Ian, thank you so much. I enjoyed this call. I hope you did too.
Yeah, I did. We'll go. I'll call back if I come up with again something else.
Sounds good. Take care. Have a good rest of your day.
Yep. You too. Bye.
Bye. All right. For those of you who want to hold my feet to the fire, I'm ready. If there's a problem with what I said, I want to hear it. Let's move on. And oh no, oh R in parts unknown. R, how are you doing?
Hello. Hang on, let me get you off speaker.
I appreciate that.
Okay.
Hey,
Beautiful.
R. Okay, so first off, I gotta be honest. Not giving a name or a location is a bit of a red flag for a call-in show. And
Right, and I'll tell you why.
you're wanting to
Okay,
call in
yeah.
about carnism, veganism, and sentientism. R, what are you doing to
bet.
me? What are you doing to me?
Well, I'm holding your feet to the fire, Eric.
Fine.
That's what
fine,
you said,
R.
right?
Yeah. What do you
Okay, so I'm the reason for this, the reason by going by my first initial and not saying where I am is because I don't want any negative repercussions for my atheism in, for example, a workplace environment.
Oh, that's totally understood.
Okay, so-
That you mean the
Yeah,
actual
and-
reason why people should go by pseudonyms? Yeah. No, I'm right there with you. Okay, go for it.
Yeah. Okay. So, and you know, being rather of an individualist, I might be recognizable by some people. So, and we spoke once before. I'm a cat rescuer, and
Hey, nice.
I don't often have a chance to listen live, let alone call, because I'm usually at my veterinarians on Sundays. And I'm doing adoption stuff and rescue stuff.
Oh, did you see?
A rare Sunday.
Did you see my little adoptee at the top of the episode?
We spoke about her the first time I called.
Oh, right now
yeah.
she is at my feet. I've got a mixer for my microphone here, and it gets warm, and so she's just sitting right on top of it, keeping warm at my feet.
Well, my two girls like to seek my attention when I'm on the phone, so I'm not going to be surprised if they think I'm talking to them whenever I speak.
That's fair.
So,
that's fair.
They're not very
as you should be.
Up. Right. Okay. So anyway, to where I'm calling.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm a sentientist, and you probably are aware of it, but maybe some of the listeners are not. We all know what humanists are, right? Humanists are people who base their moral framework on the well-being of human beings, which is a step up, I think, from theism, but I'm a sentientist, which means that I based my moral framework on the well-being of sentient creatures, not just humans, because after all, under humanism, things like dog fighting and other forms of blatant animal abuse are perfectly acceptable.
Are they though?
So, well, if humanism is a moral framework that's based on the well-being of humans, where do animals fit in there? Where do non-human animals fit in there?
Okay, well, let me be as uncharitable as possible.
By all means.
Okay.
Hold my feet to the fire.
Yeah,
Go ahead. That's
no worries.
game.
So okay, so being as uncharitable as possible, I think you could make an argument that the relationship that humans have with dogs is one that has been with us for time immemorial. And because of that, the human suffering that happens empathetically that we have when we see dog fighting happen and that kind of thing, the emotional response that we have, I think you could make a case that it does cause human suffering, and that the well-being of the majority of humans would include the what is the term that I'm looking for? It's not conservatorship. It's
caretakership.
Say again?
Caretakership? Something
like that. I know there's a very specific word. I'll probably remember it and then like jump out with it. But yeah, of non-human animals. So I would say that you could still be a humanist and have an argument for, animal welfare.
Okay, so where does the suffering of factory farm animals fit into that equation?
It doesn't, does it?
Okay. So if there are pigs who are literally tortured almost every moment of their existence from the time they enter the world until the time they leave it, which sometimes involve them literally being roasted alive or being killed in gas chambers. And this is the sort of footage and the sort of things that people don't want to think about.
So you brought up like three things really quickly that I want to touch on, because if I don't jump in, I'm going to forget it, and I'm going to like kick myself in the butt while I'm driving to pick up V from the airport.
Fair enough. I've watched you for years, Eric. I know that's how you do and should operate.
Appreciate it. Okay, so a couple of things there. Number one, I just kind of want to put a pin in and kind of emphasize the fact that we've moved from talking to dogs to talking about pigs. Mm-hmm. And so it sounds like
I don't see a huge difference there, though.
Well, I made a case that it sounds to me like you understood when it comes to the welfare of dogs and humans, and so I don't want to pretend like that didn't happen. I do want to. I want to ask you to recognize that I gave you a case for, under humanism, the poor treatment of dogs, dog fighting, and that kind of thing could still be argued for, right? Animal welfare can still be argued for in the example of dogs that you gave. Would you grant that?
Well, to a degree, because after all, humans are the ones who are creating dog fights.
Yes, and it is also humans like you who are going to animal shelters every weekend as well.
I'm not going to animal shelters every weekend. I'm going to veterinarians every weekend. I get cats out of animal.
Okay, you know what I'm saying.
All right, go ahead. Let's go ahead. Let's not.
Okay.
I don't have enough hairs to split, so let's do that.
Okay, cool. Well, no, the thing is, we have too many hairs to split. We don't know which ones to focus on.
Okay.
So, so I do want to nail that one down.
Sure.
Now, when we're talking about pigs, you said that we are torturing pigs.
Yes.
I think a lot of people, when they think about torture, they're thinking about intent. Is torture something that is done intentionally, or are we talking about impact and not intent?
I don't think any of the people who are in factory farms are saying, "Oops, I didn't mean to torture this pig." These pigs are deliberately kept in pens that are barely large enough for them to move in, They cannot turn around in them. It's like you being put in a coffin for your, actually smaller than a coffin, because you could conceivably roll over in a coffin, whereas a pig can't roll over in one of these pens.
Right. And so
yes, this is intentional torture. Whether that is the primary motivation is obviously it is not. It's the primary motivation is to keep as many of these animals in conditions where it is profitable to maximize profit,
right,
for the sake of killing them and providing meat to people who want to turn a blind eye to this.
Well, I think if people could provide meat without killing them, I think that they would want to do that. So I don't think that killing them is the intent; it's the profit.
Well.
And I think the more important conversation to have is the impact, which I think is what you're alluding to. But I don't want to confuse intent and impact, because I don't want, I feel like it is a stronger argument on your part to argue the impact of the thing. But when you confuse it with intent, then I think what you're doing is you're creating a straw man that can make people more easily dismiss you, because they can say, well, I'm sure that there are a lot of kind-hearted people who work in that industry who it hurts that the fact that, this kind of thing is happening. I feel like it's painting a group of people that you want to convince as a villain that I think you want to reach. So could we, just in the future, I think that accusing someone of intent there is number one.
Sometimes it is intentional. I've seen footage of people actually breaking cows' tails over their knees as if they were twigs.
I'm not
These
saying
are people who work in these places. I'm
not saying there aren't psychopaths like that. I absolutely agree, and I'm not saying there aren't vile people out there. I'm definitely not saying that. But when it comes to charitably engaging with other people, people are going to listen best, right? They say you catch more flies with a spoonful of honey than a gallon of vinegar, right?
Yeah, but you catch more flies than that. You catch even more flies with bullshit. So.
Absolutely, and that's why we need to call each other out. So what I'm saying is you can get further, I think, if you just jump to the impact of the thing without trying to ascribe the intent.
Okay. Although you did say an interesting word, which is psychopath, and isn't an element of psychopathy taking pleasure from the suffering of others?
That's Schadenfreude.
No, that's the Schadenfreude is dark humor, literally dark joy.
It's pleasure from other people's pain. You know the song Schadenfreude, right?
Actually, I don't, and
what?
Maybe I should, because my mother was German too. But
treat yourself to Avenue Q. It's worth it.
I'll do that. Okay, but
go ahead.
But if let's call it sadism then.
Okay. Ooh, I like that.
Taking pleasure.
Okay.
Taking pleasure from someone else's pain is sadistic, isn't it? Okay.
I muted.
So, and if we're talking about,
go ahead.
You also mentioned if people had an alternative to eating meat that it did not involve animal suffering, they would opt for it. Well, I hope that would be the case. But there are a lot of plant-based options that provide us with enough nutrients. The classic argument against veganism is, where do you get your protein? And to that I say, look at a 500-pound wall of muscle male gorilla, and ask him where he gets his protein. Clearly he gets enough. But in plant-based foods, you get more than enough protein and other nutrients as well.
So the argument from dietary pieces is very different from where you were going with the impact of factory farming.
There's an intersectionality here.
Really?
Okay, and I actually have. Oh yeah. Well, let me. I came prepared with a couple of syllogisms.
Okay,
I think we kind of digressed here.
Then let's refocus. Pick one.
Mm-hmm.
Either it's going to be the factory farming and impact, or it's going to be the dietary stuff. But when we do both of them, I think we're not going to get to either.
Okay, so let's two syllogisms here. Okay, one of them. And these are moral arguments, so you can, if you disagree with the premises, you're not going to disagree. You're not going to agree with the solution. But syllogism one: needless actions that harm sentient beings are wrong. Practicing carnism is a needless action that harms sentient beings. Therefore, practicing carnism is wrong.
Okay, let's talk about that.
Okay.
So
So carnism is the view that animals are, or that it's perfectly legitimate to use animals for our own purposes, regardless of how much they suffer. If we want to eat them, we'll eat them. Most people just want to say, "Give me my bacon burger and don't bother me about it."
yeah,
But I don't see how we can turn a blind eye to that, because
yeah.
the animal suffering that goes behind that bacon burger is very much a part of it.
So let's look at your syllogism really quick before we get too far here. What's premise one?
Needless animals that harm sentient beings are wrong.
Okay.
If people disagree with that premise, then we're not going to. I don't know how to have a conversation with anyone who.
Well, that's the big sticking point here. Is you're arguing from an axiom, and I totally get it, because I have my own axioms too, right? You know, and when we talk about humanism, one of the axioms there is to minimize human suffering and to maximize human flourishing, right?
Right. So that would say that if we want to make it from a humanist point of view, we'd say needless actions that harm humans are wrong.
Right.
And I'm just substituting sentient beings for humans.
Absolutely. And so what you're doing is you're implying the axiom that you want to prove inside of the syllogism that you're trying to use to prop it up. It's circular.
Well, not no. I'll tell you why. As I mentioned, if someone disagrees with this axiom, then they're going to naturally disagree with the conclusion. But if we're talking about a moral framework that has the well-being of sentient creatures as its foundation, as its goal, then yes, that's inherent within that moral framework. If someone's morality falls outside that moral framework, this syllogism is not going to carry any weight with them.
Absolutely. I think that the big piece of your battle here is going to be, and probably has been, convincing people that they should adopt that axiom.
Okay. Well, if people care about the dogs that are being fought,
I already gave you very clear reasoning why the dog fighting thing is easily done under humanism.
Okay. So if we torture pigs, are we harming ourselves in the same way that we would be harming dogs?
Unfortunately not. And I think that that's really shitty. That's the problem there is, you know, we don't have the relationship with pigs that we do with dogs. And because of that, we unfortunately put pigs at a much lower place on the totem pole than we would do with dogs. Like, I feel like I'm just speaking about reality here. I don't think I'm making any arguments that are
You're correct, but that doesn't mean they don't have a place on the totem pole.
I agree. And
if it's
I think that your piece here needs to be to argue that they need to be higher up on the totem pole, don't you think?
Right, but I think that if we're going to further this analogy between pigs and dogs, or cows and dogs, or cats, why then?
You come after my cat, I will cut you. Just so you know.
Pardon me? I'm sorry, you broke up for a second.
Oh, no, I just said you come after my cat, I will cut you.
As well you should. But you're also dealing with someone who's more, you adopted this cat from someone like me. Okay?
And I appreciate you for it, R.
Great. So, if people are adverse to dogs suffering, but not adverse to pigs suffering, then why are they so unwilling to watch an animal rights video that actually shows this happening as a consequence of their dietary choices and, basically what they're paying for every time they buy meat?
So,
because nearly all of the meat that we get comes from factory farms.
Yeah, so I think most people don't like watching snuff films.
Well, yeah, but because
the idea that you're insisting on needing to show it to them, or they're hypocrites for some reason. Like, I don't like a lot of things, and I like that. I feel like that's not as strong an argument as you can make.
How is it not hypocrisy?
Sure.
I mean, clearly it is. If you claim to love animals, yet you're paying to have them suffer needlessly, because you could just as well opt for a plant-based.
You can't.
Pardon me?
You cannot. We live in a society where access to meat and fast food and all of that is often much more accessible to people who have less money. And because of that, often things like veganism are a privileged position that so many people don't have access to, that the argument that you make that it is just as likely to do that is a deeply privileged position that you have. And I'm glad that you have that kind of privilege in your life, but you need to recognize that not everybody does.
Well, hold on. That's why I characterize it as needless actions that harm sentient beings. I'll grant that there are people who may have a difficult time affording a vegan diet, but you know what? It's becoming cheaper all the time. As it becomes more and more mainstream, the prices of these products are going down.
And you know what, I think at some point, you're right. I think at some point we're going to hit a tipping point where that argument is going to have a whole lot more weight.
And in fact, if we got rid of the subsidies for factory farming, for meat farming, it would be pretty much on a par.
I don't know about
the meat industry. Well, the meat industry is subsidized to a greater degree than
agriculture,
plant-based products are. Oh yeah,
I'm calling bullshit
agriculture
on that. What we put into corn alone is insane.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, I lost you there for a second. Something is insane.
Hey, no worries. I think it's a part of Colin's studio, so I appreciate you. I said what we put into corn alone is insane. I think the argument that you're making that the subsidies, I believe,
right.
and please for the viewers, call me out if I'm wrong, but I do believe that in the United States, subsidies for agriculture drastically outweigh the subsidies to the meat industry. Please call me out in the comments, and I will admit if I was wrong.
Okay, well, I'll call you out on this also, and not that I'm looking at numbers right now, but if we're talking about subsidizing things like corn or soy or other grains, and those things are in turn being fed more to factory farm animals than they are to humans, which is true, then we're paying double the subsidy when we're buying meat products.
So
when we buy meat products, you're paying for the subsidies that go directly to the meat industry and the industry of agricultural products that are in turn fed to the animals.
I just realized something.
Hmm?
We're not talking about animal suffering anymore.
Yeah, fair enough. Let's go back to that.
Well, and the only reason I want to bring it up is because I feel like it is. I think you and I can both agree that suffering should not come down to how much money we're saving and making. Like economic choices there should not be what. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but it is a reality for a lot of people, and I'll certainly grant that.
It is, and it is a clear response to the point that I made there, which is just backing us up. So we have way too many hairs to split. Okay, let's pick one more thing, and then I want to get to the next call.
Okay. Are you prepared to talk about the environmental aspect of this?
I mean, in as much as I can. I am not.
Okay. I mean, I don't expect this to be an exhaustive conversation.
Good, because I am. I'm going to be talking out of my ass so quickly. I'm so nervous when I know that I'm limited on my knowledge, and so I'm going to be honest about my ignorance here. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Then I'll touch on this briefly, and I know you have other people you want to talk to.
Okay.
But I have a similar syllogism, and this is even if somebody doesn't give a shit about animal suffering. If you don't give a plant-based ass about animal suffering, but you do care about the global environment, it has been increasingly shown that the meat industry is causing some alarming effects. And here's the syllogism.
Okay, hold on.
Simple.
Hold on just a second.
Okay.
I'm a child. You said plant-based ass, and if I don't giggle about that for just a second, I'm not going to focus.
Sure. Go for it.
Okay. Go on.
Okay. Okay. It's a very similar syllogism, okay? Needless actions that harm the environment are wrong. Animal agriculture, as it is widely practiced, is a needless action that harms the environment. Mm-hmm. Therefore, animal agriculture, as it is widely practiced, is wrong.
Sure.
Okay. Then there is an Oxford University study.
Well, I'm actually very willing to grant you that it is damaging to the environment. In fact, I'm aware of that. Is that something that convinces you? Is that a reason why you are a vegan?
No, but it would if I hadn't become a vegan already.
Here's the thing: is I feel like there are a lot of environmental activists who are very, very busy fighting major causes of environmental damage. And this is one of them.
It
is, and it's lower on the totem pole.
It's higher on the totem pole than you might realize.
If I like, to me, I would say that even if I'm being charitable, it's number 3 underneath major industrial waste, factory type stuff, oil industry, in industrial pollution and industrial waste. Like, even if I just made those the top 2, then I would say that argument would be pushing someone into a lifetime of environmental activism that still wouldn't mean that they would necessarily become vegan. Because, go ahead.
Well, all right. It's not just the global warming aspect to this. Animal agriculture is by far the largest piece of land use in the world. And because of this land use, we are infringing on the wild habitats of other creatures, and it is the major driving force behind the current mass extinction that we are currently undergoing, which is the biggest mass extinction since the one that took out most of the dinosaurs. I mean, and I can back this up also. I can back this up with an Oxford University study.
The principle of charitable listening, the principle of assuming the best in your interlocutor, is something that I deeply try to embody. And charitably, I'm not even going to argue with you there.
Okay.
Some
of your listeners might not be so charitable, though.
Fair enough.
This is a conversation not just between you and me, but also before people who are listening. And if they think that I'm talking out of my ass, I can refer them to this Oxford University study. It's a 5-year study.
So here's here's what I want you to do. I think it'd be more useful if you made this a comment, right? Comment the link under the video, and then I'll pin it to the top so that people people can look at it themselves.
Just FYI.
Yeah.
I've actually tried to on one of the other call-in shows like this where veganism was brought up. When I wasn't the caller, I tried to do exactly that. And for some reason, YouTube's algorithm would not let it stay. Okay. It was deleted shortly thereafter.
Okay, here's what you do. Because I'm going to be hopping into the Discord after this. Mm-hmm. If you can meet me in Discord and pop the link, I'll put it in the description.
I will do the best I can. Is the Discord in the link also?
It is in the description for this video. Yeah.
Oh, great! All right, thank you. I will give that a shot.
Okay, and in the meantime, the only thing that popped into my head as you were talking about it is that if we're talking about, human actions and our impact on the environment that are leading to massive amounts of extinction to species of life on this planet, I think that what that would convince me to do is find a way to fight the continent-sized island of garbage in the Pacific sooner than that argument would make me a vegan. And I don't.
Well,
and I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm just saying that that is a response that you don't need to, like, I don't need to fundamentally disagree with you to go, it may not lead to the conclusion that you're hoping for.
Well, it's not like these things are mutually exclusive either.
Agreed.
Okay. I also, and what we can do, if that's a topic for another call, is what we can do to decrease our plastic consumption. There's some really easy things to do, but that's again, topic for another call.
Absolutely. You know what I would love to do is find a weekend where we can talk about, what I want to know is how futile our individual efforts are in the face of corporations who are actually making the big differences. But I know I have another caller who's been waiting for 45 minutes to talk to me, and I do want to get the chance to talk.
Well, all right, okay. Sure. All right. Go.
No.
I'm fine. I understand.
You give me the last word, and then I'll move on. Go for it.
Well, are you giving me the last word? I thought you said I'll give you the last word.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm confused.
No, well,
it's okay. You know what? You know what? It's okay.
That's okay.
I appreciate.
Well, all right. It's hard to pick just one last word. So I'll just go with something that was the lead scientist on this Oxford study was not a vegan when he entered the study. When the study began, he was by the time the study ended.
I like that. Thank you for calling in.
Okay. All right. Bye now.
Right. And this is for everyone else. What are your axioms and why? When's the last time you questioned those tent poles that are holding up what is important to you? I know a lot of the people who watch this show consider themselves humanists, and that's wonderful. What is humanism? When's the last time you thought about it? I think that being a skeptic means that you are consistently revising and checking and challenging your ideas. And to not do so is to create a new dogma that we don't want. So be open to it. That said, Will in Texas, you're live. How's it going, Will?
Hey, man, it's going pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing okay. What do you want to talk about?
Man, I guess I feel kind of dumb when it comes to discussing things with my wife. She's been a Christian her whole life. And I got baptized some years ago. And I'm like, I don't feel anything. She's like, you're not supposed to. You're supposed to start reading the Bible. I'm like, huh? That doesn't make me want to read the Bible. So I started reading, and I've got my notes, and I've got all the bad verses. And it's just...
Yeah, well, I mean, well, I was just saying before I took your call, we have different axioms, right?
Yeah, and I heard that, and I'm not sure. What's an axiom?
Okay, so if you were to, like, if you think about the way people engage with the world, you can kind of break it up into three big sections, right? There's epistemology, that your epistemic toolbox, how you think about and why you believe things are true about the world. And that's more about your reasoning, right? That's one of those tentpoles. Another is ontology. And ontology is just what is, right? The brute facts of reality. The brute facts of reality are not influenced by what you think about them. You just hope that they're close enough that they can understand each other, right? And and then your third one is axiology. Now, your axioms are your ought statements. So what should a person do? So, like, when I say I want to increase human flourishing and I want to reduce human suffering, those are axioms. And then I can apply my epistemology, right? How I think about the world and all of that. to those axioms and come up with conclusions about how I want to behave in this world. And so it sounds like your wife has an axiom that reading the Bible makes you a better person. And so
Gotcha.
if that's the case, then maybe it's not about her epistemology, it's about her axiology.
Okay.
Does that
I gotcha.
And so if that's the case, there are still things that you can do. But it involves not just saying here are bad verses in the Bible, because that would just fly right past it. But what you could do is you can ask, are there people who are reading the Bible who are bad people? And if that's the case,
Okay.
does reading the Bible make you a better person? Or is
Gotcha.
there something else?
That's real good.
Right? I mean,
Yeah.
when you get to the heart of it, you know, you need to recognize some people can have the same epistemology and axiology as you. Or no, I'm sorry. They can just have a different understanding of the world. And because of that, you can talk right past each other. So,
Okay. Gotcha.
I don't know. Maybe that helps. I'll tell you that I made the mistake of, you know, whenever I would have that conversation with people, I'd jump right to terrorism. Oh, there are terrorists who read the Bible every day. And all that did was shut their ears. You know,
Okay.
it is a whole lot easier to talk about, you know, Joe at church who beats his wife, because that's a much more clear example of someone who reads the Bible every day who's a piece of shit. You know?
Okay.
and
That's awesome.
well, not for Joe's wife, but like
Well,
that's
yeah, but for your
but yeah. So I don't know. Maybe that'll help.
okay. What about when she tells me God? She kicked me out like 6 months ago, right?
Oh,
And luckily,
well, I'm sorry.
Luckily, my house. It's okay because we've got 3 houses on this property. Mine's in the back, my mom's in the middle, and her brother-in-law's inside. So I see my kids every day.
I have family in Texas, and they've got the exact same thing out on like 23 acres.
Oh wow!
Yeah, they got houses out on that property, and so I have a visual image of what you're talking about. Go ahead.
Cool.
Yeah.
So she kicked me out, and then a couple months go by, and she's like, "Well, I want you to do this counseling thing." I'm like, "All right." And she's like, "It's at the church." I'm like, "Really?" And so I go and talk to these dudes, and the next thing you know, she comes home from church like a couple days later. She's like, I let you move in too quick. Da 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 da. And I'm like, oh, so it's public knowledge up there about how my thing went with your, group. And then she tells me, well, God told me to give you as many chances as you need. And I wanted to go, that's crazy because I only know crazy people that talk to God, if you ask me. And so every time she does, she'll say something, I'm just dumbfounded. I don't even know what to say.
Well, Will, I'm going to give you 2 things here. Number 1, you have the right to set clear boundaries for yourself. And if you say, I want to see a counselor who is going to respect patient confidentiality, and that is not acceptable for your wife, you need to go. Mm-hmm. Because that's not okay. You cannot put a boundary on what other people can do. That's manipulation. You don't want to go there. But you have the right to set boundaries for yourself, and saying, if I'm going to see a licensed, if I'm going to see a therapist, I want my therapist to be a licensed professional, and I want that therapist to respect client confidentiality. And if that's not enough, and the second thing I'm going to say, Will, I know it's not, but how old are you?
I'm 43.
You're 43. Been married.
Yep.
Been married for a long time.
We've been married 8 years.
I got through almost 10. And,
wow.
And I left.
Yeah.
And you know what? It hurts so bad, Will.
Yeah.
And it was the best thing I ever did for myself.
Wow.
You got one life. Do your best that you can
That's
with
true.
it.
Yeah.
You know? Do your best that
Yep.
you can with it.
And
So
that's the thing. I was a drug addict for years. I went to prison because of it, and then I got out. Me and her hooked up, and I just actually over the last couple of years, I'm like, man, I really don't have a say in anything when it comes to the kids, the marriage, or whatever. And I'm like, whatever. But it's like then when she kicked me out, it's like I'm like, yeah, this is actually bullshit. I'm not sad about it.
oh,
You know?
that's a
So-
huge sign. Well, talk to a therapist, talk to a licensed, even if your wife doesn't agree with it, I think you're going to get some real good benefit from talking to a therapist. Because they can help you get your thoughts together in a way that is really going to help you, especially if you're at this place in your life. Sounds like you might already have an answer, but I am just some asshole on the internet. I am not a licensed therapist, and I could be giving you the worst advice of your life. So don't listen to me. go, but do listen to a professional, okay?
Okay.
All
I
right.
sure appreciate you taking the call, man. It's great talking to you. I love watching on the YouTube and stuff. And
Appreciate you, brother. Thank you for watching.
yeah, man. Man. We'll have a good one.
You too. Take care.
Thanks.
That's a sweet guy. I really hope the best for him. That's such a crummy situation to be in. Oh my goodness. Oh, all right. So speaking of holding my feet to the fire, I have a limited amount of time. I'm going to be picking up V from the airport, and I do want to get the chance to engage with people who do want to hold my feet to the fire, call me out, and I want to learn where I went wrong and how I can do better. We had some interesting conversations, and I'd be interested in finding out how many people thought that I didn't push hard enough. So if you want to join a more relaxed environment where you can hop in, come on over to the Discord, hang out. I do want to, now is usually the time where I thank, I read super chats. Looks like no super chats today, which is totally understood. I want to thank the patrons. Those of you who are supporting the show even a little bit, every little bit helps, and the show is almost at the place where it can support itself, which is fantastic. So I don't need to subsidize so much out of pocket. Those of you who are supporting the show, thank you so much. Don't put yourself out if you can't, but if you can, it's sincerely appreciated. Patreon.com/skepticgeneration. And yeah, I'm going to hop over to the Discord. I want to hang out with people. I want to talk. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. Thank you all so much for joining me. I already thanked the patrons. If you want to buy me a coffee, link is in the description. And yeah, I will, well, how do I usually end this? I'll see you next week. I'm Eric Murphy, and I'm glad we had this talk.